Hey everyone, and welcome. We throw around the word average all the time, right? The average price of a coffee, the average commute, the average score. It seems so simple, just one number to sum it all up. But what if I told you that simple number is often hiding a much more complex and sometimes a really misleading story? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain. So, to get our heads in the right space, let's start with this classic thought experiment. Picture a bar with 99 regular folks. Then, a billionaire walks in. All of a sudden, the average wealth of every single person in that room shoots up to over $10 million. On paper, they're all millionaires. But does that feel right? I mean, of course not. Does that one number actually describe the reality for those 99 people? Not even close. And that, right there, is the exact problem we're diving into. The reason we even need averages in the first place is because we are just drowning in data. We're surrounded by it. We need a way to condense this massive amount of information into one single value that we can actually wrap our heads around. It's a way of taking, say, the incomes of millions of people and boiling it all down to one number to help us see the big picture. Okay, so the official kind of nerdy term for this is a measure of central tendency. It sounds super technical, I know, but the goal is really simple. It's all about trying to find a single, typical value that represents the center of all the data. It's the spot around which all the other numbers seem to gather. But, as we're about to find out, there's more than one way to find that center. So, let's meet the three main players in the world of averages. I want you to think of them as three different characters, each with their own personality, their own strengths, and their own weaknesses when it comes to telling a story with numbers. First up is the one we all learned in school, the arithmetic mean. You just add up every single value you have, and then you divide by how many values there are. It's super straightforward, and it's what most of us think of when we hear the word average. We're going to call the mean the classic. Its biggest advantage is that it's easy to get your head around, and, this is key, it's based on every single piece of data. Everything counts, from the tiniest number to the biggest. Everybody gets a vote. All right, next up is the median. Now, to find the median, you have to do one really important thing first. You've got to arrange all of your data in order, from the smallest number all the way to the largest. The median is simply the number that's sitting right there in the dead center of that lineup. Let's call the median the middle ground. And here's its superpower. It is not affected by crazy high or low numbers. It doesn't care if the richest person has $1 million or $1 billion. It only cares about who is in the middle. It basically just ignores that billionaire who walked into the bar. And our final contender is the mode. The mode couldn't care less about the sum of the values or who's in the middle. The mode is only interested in one thing: popularity. It's simply the value that shows up most often in a set of data. So naturally, we'll call the mode the most popular. This is super useful when you want to find things like the most common shoe size or the most popular size for a t-shirt. It tells you what the most frequent choice is, which, as you can imagine, can be way different from the mean or the median. Okay, so theory's great and all, but let's see how this stuff actually plays out in the real world. We're going to look at a little case study here and see how these three different averages can take the exact same set of numbers and tell three completely different stories. Okay, so here we have a small company, 5 employees. You've got 3 employees making $50,000, a manager making $70,000, and then you got the CEO pulling in a cool $500,000. That CEO's salary is what we call an outlier. It's an extreme value that's way, way out there compared to the rest of the group. So I'll ask you, what is the average salary here? If you were thinking about applying for a job at this company, or a newspaper was writing a story, what single number would really represent what people earn? Well, if we use the classic the mean, we add up all 5 salaries and divide by 5. The result? An average salary of $144,000. Now just think about that for a second. Does that number feel right to you? 4 out of the 5 people at this company earn less than half of that. This shows the mean's biggest weakness perfectly. It gets totally distorted by extreme values. That one massive salary from the CEO has dragged the entire average way, way up. A company could totally use this number in a press release and look great, but it doesn't represent the typical employee's experience at all. Okay, so what happens when we use a different tool? Let's find the middle ground. If we line up the salaries in order, 50K, 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 70K, and 500K, what's the number sitting smack dab in the middle? It's $50,000. This is the median salary. See? By just ignoring that extreme value from the CEO, it gives us a much more realistic picture. 3 of the 5 employees make exactly this amount. If you are negotiating a salary, this number is a far more useful piece of information. It actually reflects the common experience. I mean, just look at this. It's the same exact data, but the story is completely different depending on which average you pick. One number makes it look like a super high-paying company, while the other gives a much more down-to-earth perspective. This is why understanding the difference is so important when you see stats about income or house prices. Now, while the mean, median, and mode are the big 3, it's worth knowing that there are also some specialist averages out there for really specific jobs where the classics just don't work. For instance, there are special averages for calculating things that grow over time, like an investment, or for averaging rates, like your average speed on a road trip. We're not going to get bogged down in the math here, but the main thing to remember is that for just about any kind of data you can imagine, there's a right tool for the job. So, how do you know which average to trust when you see one reported in the news? How do you choose the right one for your own data? Let's put together a simple little toolkit. Here's the bottom line. If the data is pretty evenly spread out, without any crazy outliers, the mean is a solid choice. But the second you're looking at something like income or house prices, where you've got some extreme values, the median is almost always going to give you a more realistic picture. And of course, if you just want to know what's most popular, the mode is your best friend. And that really brings us back to this quote. The goal of any average is to be the most representative or typical value. The key is just to realize that what's typical can be defined in different ways, and choosing the right definition makes all the difference in the world. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you read a headline about the average price of something or the average income, just pause for a second. The very first question you should ask yourself is, which average are they talking about, and is it telling me the whole story? Now you have the tools to figure that out. Thanks for joining me.